Nowadays, Six Flags is well known for having DC Comics theming at nearly all of its parks. The company brought this to AstroWorld in 1993 with the opening of Batman: The Escape. This was another coaster that had been relocated from another park, having been located at both Six Flags Magic Mountain and Six Flags Great Adventure, where it was called Shockwave. For its opening at AstroWorld, the coaster was heavily re-themed. Batman Returns was the newest Batman film at the time, so the ride was themed to Batman at odds with the Penguin. The station and part of the queue line went through Arctic Park, the Gotham City cold storage, where guests would then board the train and escape, hence the ride's name. The coaster was an Intamin stand-up model with a vertical loop and a height of 90 feet. The ride even featured a lighted tunnel toward the end. Although stand-up coasters have a mixed reputation among coaster enthusiasts, the theming on this ride more than made up for it. At this point, the mountain previously housing the Alpine Sleigh ride had stood unused for 10 years. AstroWorld used this existing structure and remodeled it into the Batcave due to its close location to Batman: The Escape. Guests could walk through and see many of the props that looked as though they had been lifted straight out of Batman Returns. Most notably was the Batmobile and a replica of the Batsuit, as well as plenty of computer equipment. With the addition of the Batcave, Batman: The Escape was the most heavily themed ride at Six Flags AstroWorld. In 1995, the park's attention turned back to the Oriental section for the construction of yet another coaster, but this one was unique in that it was an indoor coaster. Mayan Mindbender rivaled Batman: The Escape for the most heavily themed ride in the park. The queue line wound its way past ancient-looking artifacts and overgrown statues, and the coaster itself was built inside a huge Mayan temple. The coaster was designed by Vekoma, and had previously been located at Boblo Island, where it was called Nightmare. Although it was not very tall or fast, the ride's thrill came from the fact that it took place in pitch darkness. Sound effects included tribal music and hissing snakes, which made the ride scarier than it actually was. When the ride opened, the top of the temple featured a beacon of light that was shown up into the sky, but this effect soon had to be turned off due to interference with airplanes. In 1997, Sky Screamer was removed and replaced with a second-generation Intamin drop tower called Dungeon Drop. Like the park's most recent coasters, Dungeon Drop was heavily themed. This ride's theme was that of a medieval castle, as the queue line wound its way through a dungeon. The tower became a notable thrill ride as riders dropped 129 feet back to the ground. The park constructed its third Schwarzkopf coaster in 1998, called the Texas Tornado. The coaster immediately stole the show with the highest number of inversions in the park, with a total of 4. At 54 miles per hour, riders dropped 98 feet into the series of loops, and the inversions did not stop until the ride was over. Although the ride was considered to be quite rough, it still proved to be quite a popular attraction. However, the ride was plagued with downtime for a variety of reasons. The lift hill used tires to transport the trains to the top, and this system was not designed with the Texas heat in mind. The lift mechanism frequently broke down, leading to a few temporary closures. For a brief time, the ride was themed to the Looney Tunes characters and called Taz's Texas Tornado. After only 2 years, the frequent breakdowns and futile attempts to keep the coaster operating caused the park to close it down in 2000. The same year that Texas Tornado opened, the classic coaster Excalibur was finally closed and dismantled after operating for 26 years. The land the ride sat on was used the following year to open a Vekoma suspended looping coaster called Serial Thriller. This is a common model of coaster that can be found at a variety of Six Flags parks. Since the model is a stock production model, nearly every Vekoma SLC has the exact same track layout. Vekoma SLCs are also quite infamous for being incredibly rough. Despite this, Serial Thriller complemented AstroWorld's existing lineup quite well by being the only suspended coaster in the park that featured inversions. At the end of 1999, AstroWorld was operating 10 unique coasters in total, and even though Texas Tornado would close the following year, the park had a reputation of being one of the strongest in Six Flags' lineup. AstroWorld was ready to start the 21st century with a bang.
Six Flags AstroWorld is Texas' largest entertainment complex, with Texas' largest collection of unique, world-class roller coasters, like Texas Cyclone, Ultra Twister, and Mayan Mindbender. There's huge water adventures like Tidal Wave and Thunder River. There's so much
The 2000 season got off to a rough start for the park as one of its original iconic attractions, the Astro Needle, was dismantled. This was the only significant change for a few years until 2003, when the park decided to return to its roots as a testing ground for new prototype rides. When the 2003 season began, AstroWorld debuted Swat, the world's first sky swatter ride by S&S. The ride rotated a full 360 degrees as riders were given the sensation of flying through the air on a real fly swatter. That same year, AstroWorld also opened Diablo Falls, a spinning raft ride that allowed riders to careen down ramps without getting wet. These two new rides were welcome additions to AstroWorld's thrill ride lineup, but little did audiences know that this would be the park's last significant addition. In 2004, some of the coasters received a new coat of paint. Batman the Escape and Ultra Twister received new yellow and green and blue paint schemes respectively. Things seemed to be going well for the park, but there were some issues across the highway. The Astrodome had since been replaced by a much larger facility, Reliance Stadium. Since AstroWorld shared a parking lot with the Astrodome and now with Reliance Stadium, finding parking for either venue became extremely difficult. Those who were loyal attendees of AstroWorld gladly tolerated this issue though, just to ride some of the park's famous coasters. In 2005, it had been 2 years since the park's last significant addition, and those in attendance wondered what may be on the horizon. September 12, 2005 was the day that Kieran Burke, the CEO of Six Flags, stepped up to make an announcement that no one was expecting. He stated that AstroWorld would cease operations following the conclusion of the 2005 season. At the time, the park was Six Flags' 8th most profitable park, but the parking issues with Reliance Stadium were one of the main reasons Burke cited for the park's closure. The Houston Texans had moved into the stadium, and there were other events such as the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo that made parking even more difficult. These events supposedly made the land AstroWorld was built on extremely valuable, apparently valuable enough to shut down the entire park. Burke stated that the land could potentially sell for up to $150 million. However, these claims did nothing to alleviate the shock and confusion that the dedicated fans of AstroWorld felt when this announcement was made. Many felt hatred towards Six Flags for shutting down their home park, while others feared what may become of their favorite roller coasters. A mere 15 days before the park's closure, Greased Lightning celebrated its 1 millionth launch, but this event was overshadowed by the park's impending closing. October 30th, 2005 was the final day that the general public took their last rides on AstroWorld's coasters.
Good evening, I'm Vicente Arenas.
And I'm Sherman Chow. Thanks for joining us.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. 37 years of Houston history have come to a close.
Six Flags AstroWorld shut down for good this evening. Well, they said it would happen about 6. It took longer because some fans just didn't want to say goodbye.
11 News reporter Jeremy Diesel was there tonight for the final ride. He joins us now to tell us about the end. Jeremy.
Well, that's right. It took about 2 extra hours to get folks out of the lines for those rides and out of the park. Certainly, AstroWorld over the years has been known for all of its thrills and its screams, and on closing day, you can add tears to the list. It is the heart of the park.
I grew up riding this ride.
As the sun sets on AstroWorld, the lines only grow for the Texas Cyclone. Mark Brown is the last in line.
This ride put AstroWorld on the map around the world. It was the #1 roller coaster for a very long time.
Thanks again for riding the
It is again one last night. After all the teasing from above, it's finally time for the last ride. All clear. Hang on. 60 seconds has never flown so fast. Many of the rides here at AstroWorld will actually be relocated physically to other Six Flags parks. The fate of the Texas Cyclone, though, is up in the air. That's because its 30,000 bolts and 30-year-old timbers would certainly be costly to move. One thing is for sure, there won't be any more rides on that ride at this location. That's because right after that last ride, we're told a section of track was removed, and that's the end.
As the sun set behind the Texas Cyclone, the guests made their way out and the park closed its doors for the last time. After the park closed for good, Six Flags spent $20 million to demolish it over the course of the next 5 months. The land was completely cleared, and only an empty lot remained where there once were more than 10 coasters. Once demolition was complete, Six Flags focused their efforts on selling the land for the profit that was apparently worth shutting down the park over. Kieran Burke's goal of $150 million was not met, as the land was sold for only $77 million, far below what was expected. This meant that Six Flags ended up losing money by closing AstroWorld without any kind of monetary gain in the long run. These events culminated in a decision by Six Flags shareholders to remove Kieran Burke from the position of CEO. Once this information was made public, people could not believe that the park had been shut down and nothing good had come of it, not for Six Flags and not for the general public. The decision to close AstroWorld was a loss for all parties involved. Although the land had been sold, nothing was built on it, and the former AstroWorld location sat empty for many years. Those loyal to the park then turned their attention to where their favorite coasters would be relocated to, but even this would end mostly in disappointment. Mayan Mindbender was relocated to Wonderland Amusement Park in Amarillo, Texas, where it is still operating under the name Hornet. However, it is no longer an indoor coaster. Serial Thriller was initially put into storage at the Great Escape, but it finally reopened at La Ronde in 2010. Texas Tornado was first reopened at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom under the name Zonga, but it now is part of the Mexican Fair Circuit at the Isla San Marcos theme park under the name Tsunami. These would be the only coasters from AstroWorld to ever reopen. Viper, Accelerate, and Serpent were all scrapped. However, Accelerate's trains were taken to Six Flags Magic Mountain, so if you've ever taken a ride on Ninja, it's possible you've ridden in one of the original trains from AstroWorld. Greased Lightning was relocated to Joyland Amusement Park, and then to Cliffs Amusement Park in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but it remains in storage and has not reopened. The same can be said for Batman: The Escape, which was taken to Darien Lake but was never reconstructed. It remains to this day in a storage lot across the street from the park, rusting away. It is extremely unlikely that this coaster will ever reopen, given its current condition. The Ultra Twister was put into storage at Six Flags America, but never reopened. In 2009, a press release stated that the ride was damaged beyond repair, so it is unlikely that it will ever be rebuilt. To this day, there are no Ultra Twister coasters in the United States. The former coaster Excalibur suffered a similar fate, as it was stored at Frontier City for several years before being scrapped. Finally, many people's favorite coaster, the Texas Cyclone, was deemed too costly to relocate, and it was demolished on site along with the park. Its trains were moved to La Ronde, however, and can sometimes be seen within the tracks of the Monster Coaster. Soon after the park's closure, a small section of track was cut away from the Texas Cyclone and can still be viewed today at the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives in Plainview, Texas. Although the Texas Cyclone is gone, it is still possible to recreate the experience of riding, as the Cyclone style of coaster has been duplicated at other parks. One such example is the Georgia Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia, as well as Viper at Six Flags Great America. To many, though, these coasters just aren't the same as the Texas Cyclone they so fondly remember, that was torn down with the rest of AstroWorld. While the site of AstroWorld sat empty and vacant, a proposal was made to bring a new theme park to the Houston area. Called Grand Texas, the park will have several different themed areas of Texas history. Construction was scheduled to begin in 2013, but has suffered multiple delays. Information is still being steadily released though, and the current opening date is in 2018. Meanwhile, the original AstroWorld site still sits empty, and it is only used a few times a year as overflow parking for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. One structure remains, however, The bridge crossing Loop 610 still stands, with its flower beds and amusement park lights clearly not maintained for years. This bridge is the last sign that there was ever an amusement park in the Houston area. For 37 years, AstroWorld continued to grow into a park that attracted audiences from across the country. With a distinct collection of unique coasters, the park continues to be fondly remembered by both those who experienced it and those who wish they could have. Only a few coasters from the park continue to operate, but pictures and videos still exist of the legendary rides that once were. With a lot of hope and a bit of luck, Houston will once again have its own park in the form of Grand Texas. But we can't forget the city's first foray into the amusement industry. It all started right here at Six Flags AstroWorld.